Alrighty, for those people who don't know, Data Deviation is the series where we go through a commander's average deck list and we take some of the cards from the average deck list and we decide to try to make some changes to it to better the starting average list for that commander's deck list. The Ur Dragon is a very popular dragon, and I think like a lot of dragon decks tend to sort of look fairly similar for the most part, especially when you get into 5 colors and whatnot, because there's so many options and only sort of the best sort of cards really make the cut and whatnot once you get to this sort of point. And there is a lot of really powerful dragons and lots of powerful synergies that are in these colors, certainly. So we certainly have a lot to work with when we get to going with this list. So let's quickly get on going and find ourselves a list and copy and paste said list into our deck list generator and start tinkering away to see what said changes we can make. Again, we use Architect for this feature because it's pretty easy to use. But just before we get into the video for today, if you are enjoying the content that I'm putting out there, please do consider subscribing, turning on that notifications. It really helps us out. But with that being said, let's get right on into the video for today. Oh boy, this is going to be a list and a half. We have a lot of cards to have a look at, and we're going to have to, really dig deep into this list. I'm not actually going to touch the mana base specifically. It's always super hard to put together a 5-color. Oh, actually, I might tweak it slightly. Let's just have a quick look. Actually, funnily enough, red is pretty dense in our deck. I thought it wouldn't be that dense, but we certainly have a lot of green-based ramp. So, and we do have some colorless ramp, but I'm going to get to that in a minute because I really think we should get rid of some of it. But again, I don't really want to touch the mana base that much because it's so difficult to craft a good 5-color mana base, and Lord knows that I am terrible at making mana bases. So I think that this is probably fine, at least okay. There's a lot of tap lands in this deck. I'm guessing because it's also a fair amount of fetches, if not all the fetches that I think I saw all of them at least in here. Or no, I just saw all of the shocks and all of the triumphs and one fetch. That was it. That surprises me. We are at 36 lands, so it's not hard, again, to get such a large number. And it's very difficult to sort of, again, make a mana base. And this is a very, solid mana base, and I probably just can't change it. So it's just one of those things. I'm going to leave it as it is, even though I think 36 land might be a little bit too low, because this deck is very high in its costs and whatnot. The average cost here, I think there's a bunch of 3s, but we're going to get rid of some of those 3s. But there's certainly a lot of 5, 6, 7, 8s and beyond as well. So again, and just looking at the type colors of mana here, we're very high on red, very little blue, black, white, and mostly green as well. So we're really a Gruul deck that's splashing all the other colors. So there's certainly some things here that we can try to have a look at. Now, our dragons are already big. We don't need them to be that much bigger, I don't think. So we don't really need Crucible of Fire. I know some people are going to disagree with me on that, but I just don't think you actually need it. It doesn't actually add anything really to what we're doing. But Dragon Tempest, I'm going to be the opposite on this. This is really good because, again, one of the big problems is we need haste on our creatures, and that's a thing that we can get from this. Now, I know how much some people like Sarkin, but I'm getting rid of him. I just don't think he does enough for what we want. I think everything else here, Rimmer of the Wild, Teamer Ascendancy, all of that is fine. Now, the question of ramps starts to sort of come up in my mind here. We want really good dragons. This is a new dragon, actually, which is interesting. I don't know what does it even do. To a play, you roll a dice, blah, blah, blah. Okay, sure. That's okay. So yes. But anyway, there are a bunch of dragons here. This is not a dragon. It does make dragons cheaper, but we could just use an artifact for this place, or we could just use more specific ramp pieces. And I just don't think we need these type of things. I always find these cards to be more clunkily bad than what they actually provide the deck. I know some people really like these historically cards that, it's the flavor of goblins sacrificing themselves to dragons, etc. So, if you're going for flavor, sure, again, I'm not going to fault you for that, but I'm taking them out and seeing what else we can sort of put in there because there's so many options. And even Goldspan Dragon is here, so that's a really good option. So, yeah. What else have we got? Cloth is real good. There's just so many good dragons. So many good ones. Old Gnawbone's really good. Ramos, real good too. Since we're mostly Gruul, that makes a lot of sense. We are going to have a fair amount of stuff going on, so maybe Steel Hellkite's alright. I'm often thinking that these creatures like Teneb and things like that, if they do their thing that you have to sort of pay mana for and they don't generate their sort of own mana, it's often difficult. Because Dragon basically generates its own mana, it's a bit different. So yeah. Oh, well, not the Dragon, rather. What is his name? Not Morophon. Where is he? I just went past him. Ramos. Sorry, rather. Ramos. He generates his own mana, so that, it's a bit better. But again, we could have some floating mana, and if you're really hard up on getting creatures back, yeah, it is worth it. So there's a whole lot there. I don't disagree with anything else in terms of creatures. We need a good board wipe. That one's pretty darn good. I don't love Heroic Intervention, but still, it's here for now. We actually need to tutor for dragons. Most of our deck is dragons. Isn't Tiamat in this deck somewhere? I think Tiamat was in this deck somewhere, wasn't she? It? Don't see her. Oh, these are in alphabetical, that's right. Yep, there she is. So, I don't know. 3 mana to tutor something, that's okay. I don't know. Right. Teferi's Protection. I'm always underwhelmed with how Teferi's Protection works a lot of the time. You're just using it as an indestructible. So let's really get tough. Because Chromatic Lantern doesn't do us a whole lot. Look at our mana base. We have a very good mana base for the most part. Yes, sure, we can get mana screwed. Sometimes, rarely, but again, that's rarely going to happen. So we just don't need Chromatic Lantern. We don't need it at all. Anything, it is a decent mana rock on its own to a degree, but that's not nearly good enough. Decent isn't going to fly. We need, OP, or, so good that it's stupid not to include it. Arcane Signet is stupidly good not to include it. Command Sphere, just okay. We could find something that does a bit more. Dragon's Horde, I think Dragon's Horde actually does a fair bit. Herald's Horn's pretty darn good. Actually, we probably want Icon of Ancestry in this deck somewhere. I don't know why Lightning Greaves, but okay, sure. Two mana. Well, 2 mana essentially to cast this, and then a mana to get 2 mana of any color. It helps you filter your colors, I guess, and then it can do something else. So I guess that's okay. Better than some of the other things that I was sort of seeing before. All right. Now, I'm trying to think of any other lands. Perhaps we want more lands. We want more fetch lands because we've only got one. And as I said, I didn't really want to touch this mana base, but I just think it's a bit silly that we don't have more fetches. And I do think that we might want to get rid of Cultivate and Kadam's Reach because we don't have very many basics in this deck. We might also want to get rid of Rampant Growth, but I don't want to cut us down too much on this style of ramp because we've got access to it, so why not use it? So that's tough. We would have to put in things that aren't dragons and aren't artifacts for the most part to find the ramp that we would want, like Sakura Tribe Elder, things like that. So, but I do think Sakura Tribe Elder is such a staple that it's pretty decent. But then again, it only is as good as Rampant Growth, probably. But it is a body sometimes that we can use to block and things like that. So that's okay as well. I don't actually agree at all, in a sense, with actually running Mana Rocks at all, because again, we're in green, so why are we running Mana Rocks? But in a sense, well, at this point, I'm not going to change it so much because this is a deck that's kind of, needing some very, wonky color combinations to sort of happen and a lot of mana reduction to sort of happen as well, which is why, again, kind of keeping Urza's Incubator in there as well. I didn't keep the other ones because they're just not going to be as impactful or as good as playing like a Mana Rock or something else a lot of the time, or just a regular ramp spell. So I think we're at the point now where I actually have to kind of dig and dig a bit deep because, again, if we look at the curve that we've got, our curve is huge and off the charts here. We barely have any 4-drops. And we have all of these 6, 5, 6, 7, 8 drops and whatnot. Some 3-drops still, 2 drops and a 1-drop or 2. So I'm still thinking. I'm trying to remember what the other. We want Felwar Stone, obviously, but a few other Mana Rocks, maybe. I'm not too happy to put them in most of the time, but again, we're kind of wonky on needing certain colors at certain times. Yes, we are a green-red deck base, but we do have all these other colors, and just trying to fix all those colors is going to be our problem. So we're going to have to dig a bit and take that kind of and just be like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. We're not happy about it, but we're going to have to do it until they release certain cards that actually do stuff with these sorts of things. We'll like it and love it. So I'll go ahead and have a look and see what we can do, and we'll be back in a sec. Alrighty, after a bit of digging, and I mean a bit of digging, I have found some cards that I felt like would fit into the spaces that I pulled apart. So now we are at 100 cards, as you can sort of see at the top here. So it is one of those things that it was quite difficult, and I did have to sort of go around and make a bit of a dig, but it is what it is. And some of these cards aren't like 100% cards, sort of thing, which means they can whiff, like Cartographer's Survey. It can whiff. It cannot hit any lands in the top seven, but I still think it was okay enough because it can get any lands. And if we don't get lucky, we're very unlucky to get, no cards in the top seven. Yes, again, it is four mana, so it's not as cheap as maybe what we want, but it is still pretty good. Hour of Promise. It has that, again, it's a fairly expensive type spell in terms of mana cost, but again, it's a very powerful effect to get any two lands. Hunting Wilds does the same sort of thing, except again, it's forests. So we want that sort of thing. Pierre's Whim can help us ramp forward and can help set our opponents back. So I thought that was well worth that. Spoils of Victory, as long as you can get one of the ones from the Commander deck list. That's pretty good, as long as you're not getting the Portal 3 Kingdoms one, which is like $700 something. I don't think we made many changes to the creatures. I believe only two creatures. I added Dragonborn Champion because I felt like the card draw is pretty nice, and we have a whole lot of stuff that's 5 power or greater. And I think it was just Realm Walker that I also added because it's essentially kind of a dragon and helps us play dragons off the top of our deck, which is pretty darn good. Even though it's not really a dragon, but whatever. Um, I What else do we add here? We added at part our Icon of Ancestry, because it can draw us some cards, can buff up our stuff, so it does two things which are pretty decent ish. And I also added a Vanquish's Banner. As I said, we don't want things that just buff our stuff up. We want things that also do other things. So I thought that was well worth it because it does draw us cards as well. Everything else I kept the same except for taking out the Cultivate, the Kadama's Reach, and Rampant Growth, as I sort of said. So now the list is pretty darn good. As I said, there could be some changes made to some of the dragons and whatnot to make more of an impact when they come in or when they do something or whatever. But for the most part, like, I don't want to change it too much, and that does take quite a lot of work here and there. But I did feel like the ramp package and some of the other stuff that was here really needed to be fiddled with a little bit just to see, where some of the holes kind of lie. And that is one of those problems where you're always going to have holes, and you can sort of see that where I've changed, the average cost of the deck now. There's more 4-drops in the list, so it's a little bit less of a, hurdle from jumping from having all of these 3s to just having all of these 5s and having no 4s, and whatnot. So the curve is a little bit different. We've still got roughly a whole bunch of, different things going on here. Different card types, artifacts, and whatnot. And our colors distribution is still pretty similar. We're still really a red-green deck more so, and just splashing some of the other colors that are really good. So, yeah, that's where we're at with that. So I do hope you guys find this interesting, useful, helpful, all of those things if you've built one of these decks. As I said, this is not a definitive list. This is not the best list. This is just a list that I would come up with when I would want to build this sort of thing, for the most part, as a starting point to being like, oh, okay, cool, now I can, dig in and see where I'm at and, figure out whether I want to spend over $1,000 on this kind of deck and see how it plays and whatnot. Because a lot of dragon decks are going to be fairly similar to this. When you go to build them, they're going to have mostly the same dragons, maybe a different commander, but that's about it. But anyway, guys, as I said, hope you have enjoyed, and you can let me know what you think of this deck down below. Write your thoughts in the comments. Also, let me know what other commanders you want me to challenge the data on, and other commander decks that you want to see me do deck techs on. I know the new set is coming out. There's a lot of new dragon cards and whatnot that's going to be in the new D&D set. So there could be a lot of changes made to this list in the upcoming weeks and whatnot, but I still think that this list would hold up for the most part, apart from some of the dragons, perhaps, or whatnot. But again, it is what it is. I can't predict the future, and I'm not going to, dig through it too much. So anyway, you can let me know if there's any other commanders you really want to see from the new set as well that you want to see me build, because I will keep building one or two of those every week as much as I can as we're going along here, and just do some other filler stuff along the way as well. So, yep, if I don't see you down in those comments anyway, I'll see you in the next one.